Hey guys, it's Curt Storring. Welcome to the Dad.Work Podcast. And before we get into today's episode with Tim Schmoyer, which is an excellent episode on hospitality and family leadership, I want to tell you about a new opportunity to become an elite family leader with us here at Dad.Work. We have just launched our new training community, which is called Dad.Work Legacy. Inside Dad.Work Legacy, you will find access to every single Dad.Work course. Right now, there's 7 on marriage, leadership, fatherhood, emotional mastery, communication, and more, with more courses being added. Every quarter, you get access to our workshop recordings. Plus, there is a community forum so that you can get support, be challenged, build relationships, network with other Christian fathers. This is basically the answer to everyone on Instagram and through the podcast and the emails who has been asking, where do I go to just do dad work? Where do I get everything you guys talk about in one place? This is it. So if you're a married Christian father and you want to lead your family better, if you want to build a thriving, intimate marriage, if you want to confidently raise great kids and maintain your influence with your children, if you want to wake up every day feeling purposeful and confident and like you're the one in charge, like you're the one setting the tone and leading the family, like you're doing this all for the glory of God, I would love for you to apply to join us at dad.work/legacy. Again, you'll get full access to every course that we have, and as long as you stay a member, you will get access to every future course, every future workshop, all of the bonus content we'll be doing, eventually events, meetups, masterminds, plus of course you get access to a community forum filled with other men just like you, learning to become amazing role models and great family leaders. So join us over at dad.work/legacy. And now let's get into this week's episode with Tim Schmoyer. All right, dads, welcome back to another episode of the Dad.Work Podcast. My name is Curt Storring, your host and the founder of Dad.Work. And today I am pleased to be joined by Tim. Tim Schmoyer and I met in Colorado at the Integrated Mastermind. And if you guys have been listening to the last, 2 months worth of content, you'll know that I've had so many guys on from that because it's a great group of guys. So, Tim, man, thank you very much. I really wanted to talk to you about hospitality, intentional fatherhood, but you want to just give us like a very quick just background about who you are, where you're at in terms of your family life, especially because I know you got a larger family, you guys homeschool like us. How do you describe what the Schmoyers do?
Yeah. So I was a youth pastor at a church for 12 years. I thought I was going to be doing that for most of my life. It turns out that didn't end up being true, for better or for worse. I got married in 2006. And so we've been married for 17 years now. I was a youth pastor at the time. While we were dating, I started using YouTube to introduce my girlfriend to my family back home across the country. People started watching us and we weren't really sure why, but we kept making videos and we grew a community around that. People around, after we were married, we had about like 1 million people watching us a month. And people are like, how are you doing that? Like that's unheard of back then in like MySpace days, right? Like that wasn't like a thing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know, but like, here's how I'm doing it. Here, I'm figuring it out. I ended up being fired from my youth ministry gig. And a few years later, started a agency doing a YouTube growth strategy for brands and creators. Did 3 deals with Disney. I did Batman for Warner Brothers and eBay, Budweiser, HBO. Even YouTube themselves was a client for a while. So a lot of big brands, but also beginning creators and influencers, really helping them grow on YouTube because I saw it as an amazing platform to reach more people and change more lives at scale, like in ways the church couldn't and wouldn't do. And so my wife and I somehow during this time managed to have 7 kids in 8 years, and I homeschool them is what I do in the morning before I start work. And yeah, we live here in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. I sold my agency last year. And so I had an exit from that, which is great. And now I'm the chief creator coach at the parent company that bought us called vidIQ, and working on building out a scalable one-on-one human coaching program for creators and influencers. So still in that world, but yeah, instead of our agency work with about 630 clients per year. And now we get to impact potentially, they have 2 million weekly active users of their software. So much bigger mountain to climb now in terms of impact and scale and reaching people and changing lives with messages that we're trying to spread online. So
very cool.
Yeah, we got like 30 some chickens, a little homesteading here on our property as a family. We have a goal of growing all of our meat and produce for the year for our family just here on our property. And we're closer now than we've ever been. I think we have all of our meat now is 100% sourced from our property. Produce, we're still trying to figure out. That's a little harder than animals, but I don't know. There you go. Is that what you're looking for?
There's so much. Yeah, no, that's awesome. There's so much in there. I appreciate that. And I'm curious if there's a story behind being fired as a youth pastor.
There is. Yep, there's a big story there. The story, the short version is that I don't navigate church politics very well. I'm more of a call it as you see it. And I'm not a big fan of Christians just trying to be their own closed little club. And that's the very, very almost overly simplistic version to the point where it's unhelpful.
Sure.
But that's what it came down to. The church was declining, and I was like, we got to reach more people. Like, is this mission even working? Or what is our mission? Are we even accomplishing it? And most Christians that's like entrepreneurial talk. That's not like most Christian type of talk.
Right.
And so, I found I do better growing a business. We stopped counting, but we could take credit for over 100 million subscribers and 20 billion views on YouTube through our clients. I'm like, no church is ever going to have that reach or impact. So if they don't want to go that big, right, I will on my own. So.
Yeah, no, and well, that probably speaks to a bit of a personality then, hey? Because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was your intentionality. And I know that it might be obvious for you from where you're at. You've got the kids, you've had the business, you have like family values. I saw on your Instagram, you posted that, the woodwork or whatever it is that you put on your wall with the family values. I saw all of that. And the thing you posted about your son getting his email account where everyone sent him like what they liked about him as his first email. Like, dude, that is so intentional and unusual. And also entrepreneurialism is fairly unusual. And being the guy who doesn't really want to get along, but to actually do good work, also unusual. Where does that come from? Is that a learned thing? Did you struggle before? Or is this just always?
Yeah, we might get into some therapy zones here too, because a lot of it's rooted in some issues growing up and stuff too. But the high level is, I think, and I'll just speak for myself personally. I don't know how well this applies to other people. I am driven by mission. I am driven by impact. I am driven by like the thing we say it needs to do, it actually needs to do that thing and do it well. And so when we say something's supposed to be a certain way, but we're not actively trying to make it actually do that thing, I get really frustrated really quickly. And so when it comes to family, for example, if we say that family is supposed to be the most important thing to us, most people don't live like that's actually true, especially dads, right? Like they actually live as if their work is the most important thing to them, and climbing a ladder or making more money is important. So no one disagrees with me when I say that your family is most important. But if I looked at your calendar and your wallet, it might prove otherwise. And or your checkbook is what some people say. Who uses checkbooks these days? So I don't know. But yeah. And so I think that's what drives me. So by mission, I mean, like my business, I wasn't really interested in starting a business. What I was interested in, like, I'm not a YouTube fanboy. I'm a Change Lives fanboy. And I just thought that YouTube was like a really great platform to do that. And a great opportunity to reach people at scale with people who had never stepped foot into a church. And they weren't all religious messages like Disney, for example. But for example, I could work with, I better not say the brand, but let's say it's a pair of jeans that most people wear, that brand. And they could go into this with like a mindset of just like, how do we use our advertising campaign to extract money from people and make money? But by the end of our time working together, it's like, how do we make content that reaches people and changes our lives? And that ends up being good for business. So I love that type of thing. So our family is no different. Like what is our mission and our vision for our family that compels me to make decisions that we make and to prioritize our time and our money the way and our resources the way that we do, and relationships and that mission. Yeah, everything's got to flow out of that. I don't really know how to operate well without like a big picture of where this is supposed to go, what it's supposed to look like one day for business or for family. So does that answer that question?
And how are you making that vision for your family? Is it obvious to you, or do you have to like work and write it down?
So I get this question a few times. I'm never really sure how to answer it. I'll just answer by saying, I don't know. There's smarter people than me who would maybe have better responses to that. I guess in terms of our story, the way it worked is my wife and I felt like we saw common themes naturally developing in our family. And we thought like, there's something here. Why has God created us the way that we are? Why has he literally put these kids into our family with this personality trait and that giftedness and that interest and things? And how do we take all of that, all 9 of us in our family? And what is God trying to do here? What does he want for our family based on the people who are here? And and so that's, I think, where it started. It was very kind of fuzzy. We just leaned into the things that we felt like our family was naturally good at and enjoyed. But over time, we were like, we have too many different directions we could go with our time and resources. How do we need a filter through how do we make decisions on where to invest and not to invest. And so that's when writing something down, making sure we were more aligned on what our family vision mission is and what those core values are, and using them as a rubric through which we make decisions and choices about how we spend our time and what we do together, and forcing ourselves to come up with other solutions that maybe don't exist yet, because the solutions that are out there for certain things like just don't work for this vision or work for this a family of 9 or something. So we went through there's a guy in integrated, Mark Parrott. Do you know who Mark Parrott is? Okay. He was there in
Not yet.
Colorado. He and his business partner, who were not there, his business partner wasn't, but his business partner put together a course called Family Vision or something. And it's at outpostadvisors.net, I believe. Not sponsored. I feel like as a YouTuber, I have to do the disclaimer. I'm not sponsored. It's just, so we went through that course, and it was me, my wife, and our older 2 kids at the time. And we did spiritual gift inventories. We did personality trait stuff and went through the process. And we got to a place that was clear. It wasn't quite totally clear, but we got to a much better place as a result of the process in that course. And then after that, we spent more time just stewing on it, talking about it. It was a topic at date night for my wife and I pretty commonly, to continue just kind of processing and talking and negotiating and like, well, what about this? And this is a better way to, and then what we kind of got to a spot where like, this is pretty good. This is at a place where it's not perfect. It misses some things. It overstates some other things, but this is kind of like, we feel like is the most accurate place we're going to get to be as a tool to use for how we manage time and resources. And we decided just to own it. But the thing is, especially when you have young kids, like our youngest right now is 5, our oldest is 14. What our family looks like and what we're good at changes pretty rapidly as they get older. And so we feel like it's stuck for a few years, but we're probably getting to a point where we need to revisit it again and kind of fill in some gaps some holes that have been like things our kids are good at that are not reflected, and vice versa. So I don't know. I don't think it really answers the question. It was just more of like a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth over the course of maybe about 6 months.
Yeah, no, that actually is helpful because it's putting you as someone who's taking that so seriously that you're willing to put the intentional work into. And that is maybe the underlying question is, you said at the start, like, not a lot of people are taking this seriously. What was it about you that you're like, dude, family, like, obviously. And I look around at the same sort of thing and I'm like, why isn't everyone giving this like 120%? Nothing could be more important. And everyone's like, oh, well, I'm just like working and I'm on my phone. And I'm like, I'm here, so I'm a good dad. And I think we need to like raise that standard. So I don't know. Was it like something deeper for you that you're like, man, I'm never letting go of family?
I think I caught a vision for if I get excited about impact in people's lives and in the world, I think the best way to have the biggest impact is through having a lot of kids who are good, godly citizens of their communities, who raise kids who are good, godly citizens of their community, who raise kids. Like, that's the best way to have a multi-generational impact. So if I really deeply care about what the world looks like, not just in my lifetime, but in 100 years from now, and I don't mean like Tim Schmoyer gets some sort of credit for having kids or whatever. Like, not in that sense. Like when we help creators grow on YouTube, like we don't get any credit for that other than buy it from our clients, right? But if we help someone reach 1 million people a month on YouTube, those 1 million people aren't coming, thank you, Tim, for helping that creator reach me. Like, that doesn't happen. I don't care. We call it the ripple effect internally at our company, where we impact this one person and then their lives are different. In our context, that's the influencer, the creator. And then they impact their people. Now their lives are different. They impact the people around them. And all these spheres of influences are being impacted. And so I think of that happening on one level with creators, but it happens on a multi-generational level with family. But the only way that's going to happen is if I intentionally raise kids who have a vision for family also, and I'm equipping them through example of, this is how you disciple children. This is how you disciple your kids. This is why it's important to make a lot of money and get assets, because it fuels the family vision and allows us to do this work better, and so on. So I think that's where I got excited about family, because I caught that vision for the impact it would have potentially on the world one day, if it actually goes on and continues after I pass. So,
Did you have that growing up? Is that a vision that you saw, or was it something that you had to pick up after?
I don't know where I picked it up. So I moved here to Cincinnati because you and I both know a guy named Jeremy Pryor from that same integrated group. And so I worked for him for a year. And I think that's where I started being introduced to some of these things. But I think they started to take root more through the community that's around here in Cincinnati, of spending time with other people and their families and Shabbats and having conversations. And then just as we continued to have kids, we're like, when we had our 7 kids, that vision wasn't as strong as it is now. So it's not like we had a strong vision and decided to have 7 kids. That was more rooted out of a bunch of different things. One of them being that our 3rd kid, we had a miscarriage, likely due to birth control that my wife was taking. And so then at that point, she's like, I'm not taking birth control anymore. And I'm like, I agree. So that'll help you have 7 kids in 8 years. But even with trying to plan and such. So yeah, I think I just caught it through, I don't think there's like one person or one story I can give you. I think it was just being around different people who were kind of thinking about this and valuing this around the same time we were, and growing into that around the same time.
It's a testament then to showcasing that for other people. You see your kids watching you, but you picked it up from someone else. And who knows who else in your community is now picking it up from you by making this look awesome. And that's part of what I want to do, is like, there's too many people who scoff at fatherhood, too many people who scoff at Christianity, even like, oh, you believe that? Wasting your time, man. Like, oh, you've got kids, you can't come out on the weekend? Wasting your time. Part of what I want to do is turn the tables. Be like, oh, bro, you don't have a family. That's tragic. You don't believe this? Like, ugh, yikes. And so I think that what I'm seeing there is, yeah, man, you got the bug, and now you're giving other people the bug, because it was really inspiring to me to hear you talk about hospitality. And that's what I want to dive into in a moment. But just before I do that, I want to have one last sort of thing on this family culture, because I could talk about this for a whole hour. You're talking about seeing what your kids are good at and how they contribute to the family. That's a very unusual thing, I would say, for most modern Western families, to consider how the children can bless and be part of the family mission. Could you give some examples in terms of like, how are your kids doing this? What are they good at? How are you using that? I
actually got this from Good to Great. You read that book, Jim Collins? It's like, it's a classic business book, not a family book. But in there, he talks about one of the things that separates good families. Well, it is families, but in this context first, good businesses from great businesses and companies are the way they hire people and grow their team. A good company will have a job description and fill someone who fits the job description. A great company will look at who is a good culture fit for us, who needs to be on this bus. And then you hire them, and then you're like, what seat do they take on this bus? And sometimes that means you create a seat that doesn't yet exist. Other times it means like they've got some good overlap, and they came in through a job description because they're a good fit for that seat. But over time, they're not as good of a fit for that seat anymore. Their interests change. They get a little bit bored and things, right? And so a great company gets the right people on the bus and then figures out what seat to put them in. And so I took that and just apply it to a family, like I didn't get to choose who's here. God did. And I think he chose better than I would have chosen. And so what does he want to do through our family as a result of the people who are here? We're on this bus, but what's the right seat for each person on this bus? The normal approach is for parents to say, well, it was my choice to have these kids. They're my fault, so to speak. And now they're my responsibility to take care of and do everything for them. But I think that one doesn't train them to be good adults, people who take responsibility, have good work ethics, and can raise good families. But two, it also makes them feel like they're the center of the story in terms of that family. Like this family exists to make sure that I feel fulfilled. And that is a very bad place for any person to be, let alone a kid who grows up in that type of environment. And so when we look at like, what's the job to be done by this family in our community, in this home, in the world, just like you would ask that job about any good business or product, then it's a different question. Like, how do we work together? And we all play roles. So to talk about hospitality, for example, that's one of the ways we really started leaning into hospitality, is because we noticed that that's one of the things our family does naturally well because of the skills that we and the talents we have here. So for example, we host an open house Sabbath dinner every other Friday at our place. And there's around 70 some people who show up for it. Some of them, most of them religious, not all of them are. Some are just curious, and other people are just like friendly to it, but aren't really, they're more curious, if anything, I guess, than anything else. And I guess to cut to it, like one of the things we'll do is I will do a quick, like little teaching, because one of my skills, I like teaching. I don't mind doing that part with all the families gathered together in one of our rooms of our house. We do a quick, it's like 15 minutes, and it's more of a discussion, a dialogue. We call it a midrash, where we're kind of talking back and forth, but like 13 families together. And so we'll have this, I like leading that thing. So my strengths, my wife really loves sitting down and connecting and having good conversations with people. I have a son who really likes to cook. I have a daughter who just loves greeting people at the door, making them, she's so excited people are showing up. She makes you feel like $1,000,000. I have another daughter who loves crafting like little name tags, who's coming, and crafting little name tags with the seating where they're going to be, right? And so we have all these different roles that everyone in our family plays. So when we host, this is like our family operating together at a 10 out of 10 to serve other people. And everyone feels fulfilled. Everyone knows their role. Everyone feels like they're a part of this, even our 5-year-old. So that hosting became, and hospitality became, it was something we were doing naturally, but then we noticed like, oh, that's because we have these players on the bus, these team members on the bus. And then we leaned into it more intentionally with creating roles and defining the seats, so to speak. So I'll stop talking because I feel like I'm rambling. But
That's
there you
awesome.
Go.
No, that's awesome, man. I love that. That's a great example of that. And I think just a perfect segue, because it was so like, dude, it was shocking to me when we were in whatever group that was. And you're like, man, I'm struggling with this particular way that we're hosting. Is it right for us? Like, how do we want to change it? And for me, I was like, that is so awesome. But oh my goodness, that sounds like a lot. And so can you just like give us quickly an idea? Like, first of all, what do you mean by hospitality?
Okay,
because,
yeah, good point.
Again, this whole conversation is like so unusual. So what is hospitality? Where did it start?
Let's start at the beginning, and I won't go too far in here because I think we'll probably spend more time on the practical implications. But from a biblical argument, hospitality, if you look for it, is a really big theme in Scripture. It is, and I'm not trying to make an issue here necessarily, but most people, when they look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible, they jump to some conclusions about what was going on there and why it was destroyed. But the book of Ezekiel actually clears that up. And it says that they were destroyed for their lack of hospitality. So those people came into the city courtyard, and the traditional custom of the day would be that there was no hotels, and you would be embarrassed. Like if you took too long to get to those guests and not invite them into your home where you had food, wine, drinks, you're always ready to host. And it was an embarrassment to a town if some travelers came and they weren't whisked away within very quickly. But instead, in this story, what happens is these guys come to the town square. Not only do people not whisk them away to host them, but they come to rape them. Right. And so Ezekiel says that God destroyed them for their lack of hospitality. God takes us pretty seriously of like how, and you don't have to go very far to like the traveler, the sojourner, the orphan, the widow, like all these people who need support and how God feels about them. And so I forget where I was going with that, but that's maybe where it starts in the Bible. When it comes to then the practical implications of this, we heard a family maybe it was over a decade ago. They just mentioned on the offhandedly that they always have a really good rack of ribs ready to go in the freezer. They always have some wine ready to go, and they always have some bedrooms available for anyone who needs to play, like for whenever they just need to host. And that kind of stuck with both my wife and I and kind of took root. And over time, that became a bigger part of our vision is what is hospitality? There's one level where it is literally like being a hotel for people, like travelers. And we have done that. Another family here in Cincinnati called us. This was just a few months ago, actually. They're like, hey, I just met this family of 7 kids also. And I just learned that they are traveling through the area and they're sleeping in their van because they can't afford a hotel. Like, do you mind if we send them? We're like, absolutely not. Send them over. So within like an hour and a half, they were at our house and they spent the night there. And it was awesome. We had a great time hanging out with them, and all of our kids and our whole family, like we know how to turn on that gear because that's a muscle we've exercised before in the past and we practice. Everyone knows their roles and positions, so to speak. And we jump right in. And so we bought a house to help fulfill part of that family vision. Our house, we have 9 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms. It's a big house. We have 3 kitchens, 5-car garage, a bunch of acreage, a pond, and a ground pool. Like, it's a nice place, right? And we didn't buy that just for our own usage. We actually only live in half of the house, and the other half, the downstairs, where it's its own unit. It's got its own living room. It's got its own entrance, washer, dryer. It's got its own kitchen, bathrooms, bedrooms, everything. We'd leave that open for just those types of situations so that when the opportunity arises, we can say yes. And so hospitality is the overnight thing, and it is the traveler and the sojourner, but it's also just the opening our home to like open house Sabbaths, to like, hey, this is a rhythm that our family's doing for years. We have I think a pretty strong culture of that. And then when that culture was strong enough, then we invited other people into it, because we learned the hard way that if you invite people into something like, hey, we're really excited about this, come join us. What ends up happening is the culture at home isn't strong enough to withstand other people coming into it. And now the culture shifts to like, now we're performing for these other people, or now we're here to serve those other people instead of them joining us in what we already do naturally really well anyway. So we did Sabbath on our own for a few years. And really our open house started because we had a long list of people we wanted to invite over. And we realized that if we do this every other week, because we still want to maintain a strong family culture of like just our family having Sabbath. So we did every other week, and we're like, it's going to take us a year to get through all these families. So my wife's like, well, let's just invite a bunch of them over at once, and let's do it by groups or something instead. Or let's just invite them all. And then it turned into, invite them all and do an open house, and whoever comes. And so that's kind of how it started. And then we shut down for COVID and then opened it up again. And that's when the swimming pool during COVID became a great community building piece, because we could throw the kids in the big bucket of chlorine, bleach to keep the COVID away, and we could social distance outside and still build community and things. So, but yeah, so then it turned into open house. And now, like I said, it's now to the point where I have to figure out what is the goal of this gathering time? Because it's larger than most churches in America are now, like at our house. And we love it. We bought the place to be able to host bigger parties. We got the parking for it and everything. But what does God have here? Does he want us to continue growing this thing? Does he want us? It's already launched. It's already kind of split. Another family caught the vision for it, and now they're doing this in their home. And so, which is great. We love that. It was like the best, if you want to call it church, in the sense of church as like a faith gathering of believers. The church launched into that home without any budget, without any paid staff. It was only like a half-hour conversation about it, and then boom, it was like, we're like, yes, go do that. And then boom, it launched another expression of this, right? So I was like, this is like not only sustainable, but this is reproducible for other people And there you go. I just gave you a whole bunch. So there you go. I feel like I'm just rambling.
Man. Yeah, no, that's awesome. When you started this, presumably you didn't have the
No,
house, or
no.
did you have the house when you
We
opened
started
it up
in
there?
900 square
Okay,
feet.
so what was that like then? Right. Okay, so can you talk about that? Like how, let's say someone's caught the vision,
Yeah.
like you just said, and they're like, now what? What would you suggest beyond once they've got that family culture? Because I have heard that from so many guys who are in this integrated, they practice the Sabbath. We just started about 2 months ago. And I'm excited. I'm like, what do we bring in? And you're like the third or fourth person who's
Don't
like,
rush it.
nobody
Right.
for years. So what would that look like then if they want to do Sabbath hosting, or even just like after church lunch? What are some of the ways that guys can get into this very practically, would you say?
Yeah. Our house, when we started doing this, it was a small 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 900 square feet house. And that's where I started my business, in that place. And we met with people outside in the carport. We couldn't really fit, even our family couldn't fit around the table in the kitchen in that house. So yeah, we met outside, and we did, at first we were kind of like a little bit embarrassed because it was an old house and a lot of quirks, and we didn't have room for people. There was like no parking. And so it, yeah, but we felt like, let's not wait for, like, if this is what we feel called to do and what we feel like is part of our family vision, like, let's not put that off just because we have some sort of Western Americanized standard of what a hosting house should look like. I've been to Ukraine, I've been to Haiti, I've been to other countries where families just who have much less than a 900 square foot house invited in our entire team of our short-term missions and stuff and proudly did so, and we were fine. So I'm like, let's put aside that idea that we need to have certain things in order to do this. So that's where it started. And that's where I would encourage other people to start. Like, start with what you have, start with whatever makes sense for you and your family. And that's like how many people you invite. Do you just go out to a restaurant? One of the things our family does is we budget every month for a generosity fund. And that's something we started doing before I started a business. Like, I was a W-2 employee when we did that. Right. So this isn't all like, oh, I need to start and sell a business or do these things. No, like you start with the values. And I think God, as you lean into those, God chooses to bless the things that you're already doing. It's not like I'll wait for resources and then do this. It's like, no, we do this, and then God provides resources as he sees that you're being a faithful steward of these things, and he blesses you with more. So you don't wait for a 9-bedroom house to do this, right? Or for a generosity fund. Like anyone can start a generosity fund. It requires sacrifice, just like anybody else. But so anyway, we have this generosity fund, and where was I going with that? We're talking about starting with, and so it could look like for you is like you genuinely cannot host in your house for one reason or another, which is fine. But in a generosity fund, you're like, hey, we are going to take one family out to dinner each month, and we're going to start a generosity fund where we're going to put $100 or whatever it's going to cost away, and we're going to start using that resource to develop relationships, to invest into people, and to host in a restaurant if needed, right? And that's fine. So I think it can just look like whatever it needs to look like for different people. That's the first thing. The second thing I think is important that people often don't think about this is the idea of hosting and hospitality feels daunting and overwhelming and really stressful, especially when you have 50 or 70 some people coming to your house. So in order to make something like this sustainable, you need to have really good systems in place as a family to pull this off. So business context, first of all, because this is kind of usually where I start, and then I apply it to the family. My brain just works better that way, for better or for worse. When your business is growing and you're having more and more opportunity, no one's like, too much. We got to cut this off. This is too much revenue. This is too much opportunity, too many customers, too many clients. This product is selling too well. No one does that, right? But when it comes to using our home or having children, like if we really believe children are a blessing, you're like, too many kids. Like, I don't know, is it? And that's a personal thing for a lot of people. So I don't mean to poke at that too hard, but in the home, like if the hospitality thing is going well, people are coming and you're enjoying it. But the part you don't enjoy is the cleanup and the prep beforehand and the meal and everything. In a business, what you would do is like, our systems are breaking down. We need to create better systems to keep up with the growth and demand of the positive thing that's happening here. And so that's the same thing we do in our family. which is there's something positive happening here. Let's not just throw our hand up and say like, we can't do this. Let's figure out a better system that will allow us to do this and do it sustainably. So it's easier to do with smaller, but as our group grew and more, now we have better systems in place. So for example, we have a system in place where another family comes over to our house early on Fridays and helps us quickly. We don't clean, we don't scrub, we just pick toys and dirty socks up off the floor, right? And just throw them in the hamper. So another family comes over early and helps us do that. And they come over half hour early. And when our family's doing it and their family's doing it together, they're in our laundry. We don't care. So like they just come over, we're doing this together. We're linking arms. And so it takes a half hour. Everything's cleaned up. Tables are set up for guests and everything is ready to go. And then we have a pretty good system for a meal. We just do the same meal every single time. It's just taco bar because it's gluten-free, it's sugar-free. It's like all the different things, dietary stuff that people need. And it's really simple. So we just throw the meat into a crock pot, turn it on, and it just goes for the chicken and beef. And then other people, when they sign up RSVP online, we use a site called punchbowl.com. Again, not sponsored, but that's what we use. And they sign up for what they're going to bring. And it's all stuff they can stop at the grocery store and pick up on the way. It's like a bag of salad, it's a bag of cheese, it's a jar of salsa, it's a tub of sour cream. But it's like that type of stuff you can all bring. And sometimes there has been one time where we didn't have any taco shells. And it was like, no one signed up for that. And we're like, it's fine. Now you're making nachos. Just put the chips down instead. So we don't feel responsible for filling in gaps. No one brings cheese sometimes. We just don't have cheese that time and it's fine. And so everyone brings their stuff. We set it out we have like a buffet type of counter in our kitchen and then we hang out. And then for cleanup, before people start leaving, everyone kind of knows now that we get a quick announcement like, hey, all right, before people start leaving, let's clean up real quick. And our kids then get all the other kids together and they clean up wipe down the tables, fold the tables up, the chairs, they carry them out to our garage. The moms kind of quickly clear off our counters, put food in the fridge. Everyone pitches in and it takes like less than 10 minutes and our house is cleaned up. Then we hang out for however much longer. But when people leave, when the last person leaves, we close the door and our house is done. We just go straight to bed. The house is all cleaned up, ready to go, right? So it just comes down to good systems, I think, that makes it sustainable. So, yeah.
Man, that is so awesome, by the way. Like just hearing that vision, I'm like, wow, perfect. And tacos, by the way, like our favorite thing.
Yeah, who doesn't like tacos?
So easy. Yeah, exactly. But I think I saw something on Instagram. It might have been you and your wife talking, something about like, I think you just kind of alluded to that, which is you're not entertaining. Mm-hmm. You're just like there with people. And I think that's an important distinction because I often feel responsible for people coming into my space. I now have to make sure they have a good time. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, this is good. Yeah. So I forgot, my wife and I sat down. I have a personal podcast called Family Centered Business. And our latest episode is my wife and I talking about this hospitality stuff. And I forgot. One of the things that we talked about is and I forget how we worded it because I listened to that clip that you were referring to on my Instagram. I'm like, ooh, that was good right there. I have a assistant who edits all those and puts them up for me. But so I won't get it as good as I did there. But the idea is that for most people hosting, they feel like they need to perform when they're doing that. And when you feel like you need to perform, really what you're saying is, I care deeply what these people think about me. And in that regard, like the hosting becomes more about you than about the relationship. And our perspective now is it's not about how do we look. It's more about like the focus is on the people who are coming. So I get that it's important to clean up, and we do the cleanup, not because of how it reflects on us, but because we want to honor our guests and make them feel like they're in a welcoming, relaxed environment. But sometimes it doesn't all get cleaned up and people come in and there's still dishes on our counter and there's still junk on our stove and people don't care. If anything, it's like, oh, I feel like I can put my feet up on the coffee table and feel more relaxed here. And we're like, great. That's awesome. That's actually how we would prefer that you feel. So yeah, the focus needs to be less on like, what do people think about me, and more on how do I serve this person really well, and the focus is on relationship, not on performance. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. That takes the sort of selfless, sacrificial angle, which I think is important in all things. But how have your kids done with this? Have there ever been a time where they're like, no, Dad, this sucks. Like, we don't want to do this. What is that like with them?
Are we doing a house about, are we doing it this week? We're doing it this week. Or after like our homeschool co-op, sometimes a bunch of families will come over to our place to eat lunch together after that, things too. So no, our kids love it. And I think there's something, let me say it this way. When I look at biblically, how are people supposed to form community? Most people today form community inside of a church building, inside of a gymnasium, on an athletic field. And those are all fine ways to build community. But biblically, community happens in the home and it's led by fathers. You look at like Passover, for example, this is a meal where there's a father leading this in the home with the children, breaking the bread, which then Jesus took on to symbolize himself, right? Now we know it as communion, but it started as Passover and still is Passover. We just called it communion. But yeah, and so I think like the home, there's something intimate about being in someone's home. There's something vulnerable about being in someone's home. And I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, is because it feels risky in some way. These people are going to get to know me a little bit better. I don't have an exit plan. I can leave someone else's house or I can leave the soccer field if I want, but when they're at my house, I don't have an exit, right? So it feels a little scary, but I think that's what makes the relationships go deeper and become more meaningful, is using your home as a tool for that type of thing, for building community, building relationships. And also maybe as an entrepreneur, I'm the kind of guy where it's like, well, if I want to have good, meaningful, deep relationships and it's not happening, I'm the guy who's going to be like, I'm going to go out and figure it out. And I'm going to make it happen. Right. And it's other people I know. And it's a personality thing. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, all right, some people who come to our place just they wait for someone else. Some of them drive over an hour to be here each week or every other week. So because they don't have the personality to start it. But hopefully the guys listening to this might feel a little bit more empowered to be like, no, I can do this in my home. And rather than waiting for some church organization to start it, I'm going to go start it. And it starts small, like any business, right? Any good endeavor starts small. You make a lot of mistakes. You learn a lot of things. You improve your systems and processes along the way. You build relationships with other people who come and partner with you, whether you call them employees in a work environment, or I don't know what we call them in our home, but this family that comes early and helps you fulfill this mission that you guys are linking arms on together. So, yeah.
Man, that's so good. That's something that I have found in myself too. I'm like, where are all the other dads? Why hasn't anybody done anything about this? And I'm like, oh, that's me. Yeah. Okay, well, I better get to work. That's one of the things I'm trying to do right now with my boys, is figure out how to lead something that men and their boys can come to, kind of like a trail something, almost like a Scouts or Cubs thing, but trail life. Yeah, someone was telling me about that. It's not in Canada. So I emailed them. I'm like, can I do this? Otherwise, I'm just going to do it anyway. Yeah. So anyway, that's on my heart as well. But at the same sort of personality thing, I think probably last question just for your time. How are you guys finding people? And I know it's probably easier now that you've got this network and there's been so many people at your house for a number of months or however long it's taken. For someone who's in that church environment or is in that soccer field, do you just be like, hey, do you want to come for dinner? And then that's it. And you just like, even if you're not great friends, or how are you reaching out and finding these people to actually come?
That's basically it. Yeah. We just are involved in a local church, jiu-jitsu gym, homeschool co-ops. It's the places where we already are. And when we usually don't offer blind invites to just everyone. We kind of build relationships with some people there first, because I think maybe part of this, I didn't really talk about this. Not everyone connects naturally with everyone. And I think that's okay. And so it's not just a blind open invite to whoever. It's the people that we feel like we have some connection with or could have deeper connection with if we spent more time together. It's the people our kids enjoy being with. And it is open house. And we do have people who invite friends and come and things. And it's at a size right now where that's kind of okay. Cause at 70 some people, I don't even connect with everyone there anymore, which is part of that's what I'm trying to evaluate if that's part of a problem or if that's an okay thing or what. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But yeah, so it ends up like we're going to co-op, and not everyone at co-op gets an invite, but it's like, oh, our kids are naturally connecting, our wives are connecting, or I'm connecting. It's just like, hey, we'd love to hang out with more. Like, come over to our house. And it's a natural, like, we've got this family rhythm where it's not like, let's get together someday and it's like this big event. It's like, we already do this. Just kind of come join us in what we're doing here. And there's a natural on ramp to building a deeper relationship there. So yeah, there's some people from church, some people from co-op, some people, there's probably like 6 different congregations all represented here. So it's not like a church thing or whatever. It's just people from the area. I also lead a thing called Story Formed Life, which is like an 11-week Bible study that tends to draw people from around the area too. And we connect with people there. And so some of them who live closer by end up coming. So yeah, just wherever. Build some connections in those places and then invite the people you're like, I feel like this could be a fruitful relationship and think like there's something here. Let's spend more time together.
Nice. So just take action and be the guy who's putting yourself out there and building those relationships and then bringing them back over when it's the right time.
Yeah.
Imagine that. It's all about taking action. Man, guys will not be surprised to hear that. They might be annoyed to hear that, but that's how you do anything in life, in my opinion. So I want to make sure you're at your next appointment on time. Where can people find more about you if they would like to connect?
You just go to timschmoyer.com. It's just a generic site. It has links to my podcast there and do some personal business and coaching on the side for creators and things too. So yeah, you can find me at timschmoyer.com.
Sweet. Okay, well, I'll put that in the show notes, dad.work/podcast. Tim, thank you, man, for being on here. I really appreciate this. It's been a ton of wisdom.
Yep.
Thank you, man. Take care.